Hey guys, this is Mark at VideoGameMuseum.com. I'd like to take a look at the security tool called a 3.8mm security bit. It's actually a game bit that can be used to open up all sorts of video games. We've just developed a new version of this. I want to show you that as well, of course. It's actually a star inside here, so it's a female star. It goes over the male version of a screw that sticks out, and it can be used to open a number of different games. Nintendo started using this back with the original Nintendo. Obviously continued this through Super Nintendo and 64, and also used it on both the original Game Boy games and the Game Boy Color games. They also were nice enough to use it on the Virtual Boy. Funny enough, Sega picked up the 3.8mm security bit for their Game Gear, but really for the rest of their games they used a few different variants, mostly being the 4.5mm. But just to show you this security bit in action, I don't know how well this will pick up on camera, but at the base of each of these holes is a screw. So I'll go ahead and take this security bit. Of course, there it is, matching them up. This can typically just be done by hand. If you have a nice security bit, you'll get a nice fit there, and generally they're loose enough that you can do this without putting the actual hex bit into a receiver. So I'm going to take out that screw. Oops, there we go. Takes a little bit of time, of course. There we go. Maybe it was loose all along. Alright, so this is what the actual head of the screw looks like. There's the head of our security bit. We're really happy with how well these are cut. We feel like I have always offered a good security tool, and now we're able to offer our own brand and control that a little bit more. So we actually have super high quality heat treated steel. Actually has a gold finish to it, and so for corrosion resistance. It is precision cut. It's about approximately 3 inches long, and beautifully fits onto the actual security screws for NES games, Super Nintendo, N64, and all the rest of these. So just to show you a little bit, if you're ever curious about opening up your different games, you'll see that sometimes you'll have a different color of screw. For example, we've got a silver screw for this NES game. Super Nintendo here is using a gold colored screw. Now this isn't always the case. Sometimes you'll have, I want to say some of the newer NES games would actually use the gold version. So that's a little bit more similar in color to our actual security bit. We wanted to be able to distinguish this from others. There are a lot of cheap quality security bits out there, and obviously if you buy one that's high quality, it's going to last a long time. So that's not only can you identify it by our stamp there, VGM 3.8, but also by the color. So same thing. These are sort of a gold color screw on the back of your N64 games. Those come out really nicely. Alright, Tetris game, same thing, just one silver color screw. Now of course, if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to just hold on to the security bit, you can actually put it into a handle of different sorts. There are a million different receivers that you can get. Here's just a generic one. Here's a goofy version that actually allows you to not only put the security bit into the handle, but also here. Really, it doesn't matter. Just don't put them into an actual drill, because if you put most security bits into a drill that are doing more precision work like this, you're more likely to do some damage to them. Alright, so Game Boy Color gold screw, that's Pokemon. So this will open Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver, Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, Pokemon... there are just a bunch of different versions of the Game Boy Color one. What is that? The Emerald version. Alright, so the back of this Game Gear game actually, funny enough, has a black 3.8mm security bit screw. I'll show that to you. Oops. So that's what Sega's looks like. They love the color black, so all their stuff is typically black in these systems. So there that is. Fits really nicely on that, of course. You can sort of see how well that holds in there. Alright, and then we'll open up this virtual board cart. It actually has 2 gold screws. So I'm guessing that they just at some point transitioned from silver to gold for whatever reason. Nintendo likes to you know, really put premium items as their gold items, so if there's something that's like those Zelda carts that for N64 or Super and original Nintendo, you know, you got the gold treatment. So alright, this one's in a little bit more firm. Alright, I'll show you the inside of each of these too, if you're patient enough to watch for me to open all these. Now, maybe I'll fast forward some of these screw openings. So, alright, there's the screw for a Virtual Boy, so that fits really nicely there too, of course. Pretty much the same screw, gold color between these 1, 2, 3, 4 cartridges here, and then silver here, and then a black there. So that's what we have. Alright guys, so I'm going to continue taking screws out of all these cartridges. We can always fast forward this part of the video. But yeah, Super Nintendo of course has these gold screws. They come out pretty easily, pretty easy to get to. NES of course has these silver screws. There we go. 3 screws in most of the later NES games, but some of the original games had 5 screws. Nintendo realized they could put a hinge, boom, right there on the top of the game in order to save some money, you know, in the construction of the cartridges. So that saved a little bit there. All right, and just opening up the N64 one. All right, so just taking a look inside each of these. So here's the NES cartridge. This is Mario Duck Hunt. So that's what that looks like inside. You can sort of take a look at that board. It looks like that needs to get cleaned a little bit, but that's what you have inside. Isn't that funny? So the Famicom utilized, you know, it had cartridges that are literally about half the size of this, so they weren't selling a bunch of empty space. All right, the Super Nintendo. All right, I got a little further on that screw, perhaps. Oh, there we go. There's the side of the board, and that's pretty similar in size. And this one actually has, of course, a battery there. So obviously these security bits are really handy if you want to open up and change your battery in your games, or to do serious cleaning. So this is a great opportunity with it open to take a look inside. So that's Super Mario World. Put that there. The N64 game is Zelda Ocarina of Time, the gray cart. Alright, so inside of here you actually have a couple more screws that you need to get through. So those are actually Phillips head. Alright, we'll see if we can get these open. See, just so you can take a look. We're just taking off essentially the mounting and the heat shield. They're pretty serious about keeping everything in place in the N64 version for some reason. Alright, so those are 2 little Phillips screws. I just used a generic Phillips screwdriver. So that's a 4-point, and we'll lift this out. There you go. Now the heat shield is off, and you can see inside of here we have the board. You got a CR2032 battery, just like in the Super Nintendo game. That is just one of the most common batteries to use. It's a little 3-volt battery. That's the back of the board in the front. Back, another heat shield there. And you've got a little dust. This is kind of cool that they have this dust protector piece there. One more thing to worry about though when you're taking it apart. Goodness. Alright, let's see if I can get it all lined up pretty. There we go. Alright, so then we've got the original Game Boy here. So this actually is Tetris. There's a sliding piece that locks, and then of course the screw on the back, so just slide the front, don't pry it, and inside is the board. Look how tiny and simple that is. So that's the front and the back of that. That's Tetris, of course. Alright, leave that open. This is Pokemon Gold. This slides also just like you can see that how it slides, and then you can take off the front of the cartridge, Inside there is a CR2025 battery. So just like the CR2032, it's a 3-volt lithium battery. You could put in a CR2032 if you're replacing that, but great opportunity to clean it. And you can see the back of the board, Nintendo 2000, and the front of the board there. That's of course how they save the game. Alright, and then we can open up the Virtual Boy. This one's a little different. So this is Mario Tennis. Oops, something's sticking there. There you go. Alright, so that's what the inside of this cartridge looks like. Tiny little board there. Look at that compared to even the Game Boy ones. Alright, so, there's what the back of that looks like. Nintendo 95, it says there, 1995. What's interesting here is that pen connector, if you can see that well, looks just like the pen connector for Play Choice 10, an arcade game. They essentially have boards that are their cartridges that have a similar mount, and it looks a lot like this. So, of course, the Play Choice 10 one is a bit larger. Oops. Let's make sure I don't mix this up backwards. All right. Fortunately, most of the time there's only one real way that things are going to fit inside each of these cartridges. Alright, and of course finally we get to the Game Gear game, the only Sega game here. Alright, so I've got that screw out, of course. And what's the trick for these? I forget. I don't deal with many Game Gear games. You gotta be a dedicated collector if you collect Game Gear. What is the trick here? Okay, so I just popped apart the Game Gear game. Seemed to have a little bit of a snap to it. So that's the board inside there, just compared to the NES or Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Pretty similar, and a little bit larger, of course. And it's interesting how they offset the connectors there. So there's the front of that board and the back of that board. And there it says Sega 91, and this is X-Men vs. Spider-Man for the Game Gear. Alright, so we got a couple clips that had to snap back together there. That's kind of tricky to open that one. Yep, so just so you can see how that works. Just a matter of really just prying it apart. So there you have it. That's the inside of a bunch of different cartridges that can be opened by these 3.8mm security bits. Hey guys, I switched over to macro mode just to take a closer look at some of these security bits and the screws, just to give you an idea of what these look like up close. Here are a few of the security bits, so you can just sort of see the cut on these. We feel like they're done super well. That's a nice strong teeth in there, solid cut. You're not going to have some sort of halfway cut that's going to skip or anything like that. This is going to grip super well. Alright, just to show you what these look like next to the screws. This is a gold screw, and you can see it next to the security bit. So that's a gold headed one. Let's see if I can find here's a silver one. That's a silver one. And then of course there's that black one that was in that Sega Game Gear cart. And there's the black one. We're really impressed with how these came out. We worked a lot with our manufacturer to get these. These are made right in the United States. This is high quality heat treated steel, so this thing is rock solid. You can of course see that these are custom lathes to be nice and long, so you're not going to have any issues getting in any of the holes in these different games. They're marked of course VGM 3.8 as that's the size, and then that's nice corrosion resistant plating that's actually gold in color. So we figured that would do a little give a little honor to the Zelda carts and other awesome gold Nintendo stuff. So keep an eye out for these if you haven't bought one yet, or if you're even just looking for a better quality one. Check out our 3.8s. Feel free to go to videogamemuseum.com for more information on repairing games, preserving games, stuff like that. Hope you all the best. Happy retro gaming. Good luck finding stuff.